Welcome, it's episode 6, coming over what we've been doing. It's good fun. Woohoo! Alright, so straight into episode 6, and we open with this shot now of the jack. Down the handle we go, and it's evening time again, by the way, everyone on YouTube and Patreon land. And guess what, I've got my beer again, Cobra this time, Cobra beer, ice cold. There's the front chassis clip. It's an old rough one I had lying around, but I'm using it to make sure that when I set and weld these front lower chassis points, it's going to land straight in the middle of the bushes, the mount bushes. So there's the lower chassis points that we dissected, and we're going to jack them up into the frame. We've already had them loose fitting, of course, so they're all really ready to go, but what we need to do is to make sure that when we weld them in place, that the chassis cradle is exactly nicely fitted, and that means that you can withdraw the bolts under no tension with your fingers. I'll probably take a little pinch of the bolt and just check it, but there's the chassis leg there, and of course as you can see we can just move that freely, which is what we wanted. Okay, that was the plan, and once I'm happy with that chassis, we call it a clip, a suspension clip or a front subframe, and all Cortina Mk3s have those, of course, and 4s and 5s. It was a really new idea with the wishbone suspension at the front, quite a radical change from the McPherson struts. So here's our line of our inner wing apron, just making sure that everything's straight with the chassis legs. I've noticed differences between Cortinas when I've looked at the way the panels go together. They do vary from car to car, but that's ready. That'll push down and plug weld up later on. There's that join that we did. Don't forget, everything's overlapping. There's no butt joins as such. So the C section of the chassis, as you saw on episode 5, continues to the front as one whole piece, albeit repaired. And then the apron donor section then overlaps to make those stagger joins that I talked about. As I said, rather like bricks overlapping each other to maintain the best strength we can. So we just keep looking at that and working out exactly at what point we're going to clamp and make the weld. Plenty going on, there's plenty been going on. We've done quite well to get to this point, quite a relative short space of time. Got to thank the Portuguese donor shell for that. If you want to see a bit of story on the Portuguese shell, it makes appearances throughout the Ruby Project Ruby films. Round to the front then to see that front valance cross member. It's actually a Mark IV front cross member, but so it's got the wrong front little ramps. You'll see what I mean later on when we have to cut them down, and we have to make, well, actually buy some properly made brackets for that so that it fits on the front apron. But I only realised that was wrong later on. I was thinking, looking at it. See, the thing is with those is those 3 circles, you can see one of the circles now top left, they're normally only applicable to early cars. So that's what misled me, thinking it wasn't a later part, but you can see that the shape of that, where the front lower valance would fit, should be just a crescent shape, and it's not. It's got an indentation, which means it's Mark IV. So I'm looking at where we're going to be making more welds to weld up that cross member piece and get it nice and solid. We'll be using the spot welder for that. Okay, spot welder will be going on, just checking that it's pushed home properly. It'll be coming back out in a minute, but I'm just checking that it's pushed home properly. As soon as I start doing the race and both my cats decide to make a beeline for the kitchen, which is where I'm doing it, and start messing with everything they can find. I've got a cat messing with a charger lead at the moment. Up and round we go, showing you what's been going on. A little bit quick on the camera there. Slow it down, boy. Slow it down. Some plug welds need to be going in there, and there we can see how the front cross member slots in behind those plug welds. So you've got to bash it home. It fitted in quite nicely. It just was made to fit. We got all the spacing right. These plug welds need to be cleaned up a little bit, so when you put your welder in, the weld through primer doesn't get in the way too much. I think I made the mistake of too much weld through primer, because when I was doing some of the plugs they were kicking back at me. I won't be making that mistake again. Plenty of spot welds to go, plug welds to go in there. I was quite pleased how quickly it came together as well. I've kept everything as neat as I can. Again, just checking the bolts. I'm going to just make sure we push and clamp everything into place. So there's loads of checking and double checking here. It's quite a critical moment. Looking at the way it fits inside, making sure it's level with the continuation of the original piece of metal. We whack it up if we have to, then clamp it. Quite a bit of time being spent looking at this. The front clip is critical that it fits right. You really want it so the bolts just tap straight through. So when we come to offer up Bramble's clip, we want that to be good. You can see again, done that a few times. Some WD-40 on them actually as well. Taking you around again, just to show you the cross member again. Now it pushes into that position there, ready for it to receive its spot welds and plug welds if needed. Two faces there to do. This side not quite as finished as the other side. There's that bowl repair that we did. Been cleaning up a bit around this side. There's the other bolt. You can see that Weld panel. Does that say Mark III on it? Because by the time I'd realised, yep, that says Cortina Mk3, so that's completely wrong. So how about that? That is not a Mark III Cortina panel. So what's happened there? It looks like one because of those early circles, round circles, as opposed to the squares that they had on Mark IV and V. But that threw me. Ended up having to chop it. You'll see later on in the film where, luckily, we take a visit to Express Steel Panels, and they very kindly make me the correct brackets. It's really good what they do. There'll be a separate film about that. I'm talking you through, again, the alignment on both sides, making sure it's just such a critical thing, as I said, that everything is just a perfect fit. I don't know how many times I check them bolts, but I check them a lot. Bit of TNT again, we had that last time. AC/DC, the best hits are playing at the moment in the background, quietly. And you'll hear a rattling, which is a kitten that's decided that a bottle top's a good toy. The jack was holding it in position. I'm checking the run on this side. It kind of pivoted up. I just put the first 2 bolts in, and it's kind of like swings into place. It's actually a facelift clip, slightly different, but the spacing's the same. So the front end started to take shape quite quick. I think in a minute we're going to pull that cross member out, and it goes back in later on. I think at this point I'm giving it some auditory commentary. Let me see what I'm saying. Not enough for me to hear. Moving on then, the weld through primer goes on. That's too much. Sorry about that, but it's too much. It's very thin stuff. You get a hell of a lot for your cash. Now, I know now, because this is the future, when I was doing this and didn't know, that really you should keep a little bit clear of it. Seems wrong since it's weld through primer, but I found it kicked back.
So I first stumbled across Jonas.
But it is good stuff. Some spaces there where some metal has to be grafted in later on. Such a critical point, as I said. Probably why I'm spending so much time looking around this particular bit. Apron damage there, you can see. We need to address that. So the first tack goes in. The C-clamp's on there. And you'll see you get some sparks flying back, not normal ones. And that's because of the weld through. Later on I actually put more plugs in there, actually drill through it again. Of course the camera shakes when I hit the chassis because the camera's on a mag mount on the chassis or on the body shell. Clamp and weld. I found with plug welding, clean that area first and you'll get less problems. We do learn that as we go along, and I go over these for that reason. But it does work out, and they all penetrate good. We get it in the end. Yeah, a bit like an earthquake there when we're hitting that. Can we get the C-clamp in? Went quite quick this. The advantage of having that cut up shell. I don't know where they got them parts from otherwise. And I was really pleased that I kept the full chassis leg, because it meant nothing's moved. And you'll see later on how everything lines up very nicely. One of the reasons why is that nothing moved. Or none of the critical items did anyway. I've tightened those bolts up. Here we go. So that makes sure that you draw the legs together, because they can move left to right. You can see where my hand's moving it there. There is a degree of movement until everything's fixed. so the nut and bolt went through it. And then now I fixed this side. Decided to put the welding clamp there. What can I say, but more welding going on. And also, I get better with plug welding later. What I did later on, I'd make a little cross, and people on the Patreon site gave me some tips. Thanks to those guys on there. So do 6 o'clock position, join things up, and then swirl it around. Once you've made a kind of like join, you'll see the lance starts to turn. You see that burn back. And then you see the black shadows and marks, and that's the weld through burning back. It has got a low burn back. There's some plugs, make your decision on those. So now we've put the wings on, quite a big jump then, and the grille on, and this is to get the upper front valance panel in the correct place. What you're looking for is an even gap. So mock up, put the cross member back in if we hadn't, I think we had took it off just earlier. Put it back in, put the top upper valance on, and then put the wings on, and make sure that everything's right before you start finalising. And the spot welder comes out. Glad to see that making a return. Must admit, I do enjoy using the spot welder. This is getting de-rusted again, so we don't worry about that. They're good, clean pieces of metal. Cross member's off. Now I think we're going to offer it back up. We've got a few spot welds in. You'll see how this fits now. So I have to slightly under tension, so I have to feed the left-hand side in first. But what I'm doing before I do that, that's the wire wheel. We're cleaning the areas where the spot welds are going to be, to assist with the spot weld. And that's what I don't quite get, because you put in weld-free primer and the spot welder doesn't do as good a job as when it's totally clean. It's really, really good when the metal's clean. Rubber hammer on this just to stop it denting it. Push it back a bit, knock it back. You can see how it slots in nicely, but as I said, marked up as a Mark III. No way that's a Mark III panel. You see the curves at the front of it? They should just be like a crescent shape, and they're not. They've got an indentation in it. Completely threw me for a while. You see those 3 circles in the middle? Well, they're normally only on early Mark III panels. So even facelifts have squares. So Mark III's, facelift Mark III, they become squares, which is exactly why when I bought this on eBay, I didn't even look to think of those front sections where it fits the lower front valance. However, our journey out to express steel panels, which is a separate film, which you're going to enjoy, shows them saving the day. And because they make panels to exact spec, they made me those brackets and we fitted them. Always have your gloves on when you're using the spot welder, because the ends get very hot and you can easily forget. I've not got that, I've abandoned that one. I might go again now. You can't always reach the places that you want with a spot welder. I have got 3 different sets of arms, but even with those I could do with a few more. There's always one where you can't reach. We didn't do bad. Knocking it in again. It's moving around till we get it fixed. This might be one of the fixes now for it. Let's see if it gives us a spark or not. Nothing yet. I did find that my breaker on my ring main was tripping out. That might have just happened actually. It's I'm running on a 16 amp breaker. It needs to be 32. The spot welder will sometimes trip it. Up about it, back on. This guides itself really. I already have had this fitted earlier on. If you saw in part 5, and we use it as a chassis leg reference piece to make sure it's sat across the two front chassis. We drop it in, which is great fun to do. All building this whole front end's been great fun. I actually miss it now I've done it, especially like blending in the panels. Really happy about this fit, working out just exactly where everything's going to land before things get fixed. That view underneath will probably show a few spot welds that have gone in already. Then checking the distance. So we fit the grill. What you want to do is just make sure, I mean, you know, we have messed with the front legs, but I wouldn't have thought that affected this because I haven't altered this the chassis. It's been completely factory, but it has had a front end crash, so you don't know for sure that things had moved, you know, in the history of the car, if you will. So you never know, you know, you can never assume anything. You've just got to go with what you've got and then check it. Now it's a bit crude using a pen top, but it works. The thing does guide itself. There goes another beer top. So we just want to make sure nothing's drastically wrong before we start making big commitments with panels. You'll see that right hand side chassis has got a slight lean on it. That's just the way they are. Do you know what? Them wings just fell into place and everything landed right. Probably the easiest front end I've done. Everything just guided itself. We haven't got any bolts to bolt them wings down, just using them just to get relative positions. A spot weld is in both sides, which is what we want. And now we've got a fixing on our upper panel, seeing that we're happy with its relative position. Grill in, and then the headlamps in to make sure that they sit bang on in the middle of the grill, which they do. They're just some second-hand, they're just some second-hand headlamp bolts, and there's our lower valance in from Express Panels. Express steel panels make that, and they do a blooming good job. Really, really, you know, I mean, I went down there, you'll see the film. I just can't believe what they do. I didn't think you could get half of these panels till I went there, and I found out how much stuff you can get from them. Nice clean spot welds, they went in really good. The spot weld just made the right shape, they bit nicely, it went straight through, it was a rock solid job. I was well pleased with that. Now there's the brackets, see that silver colour? I've sliced back the original ones, the Mark IV ones, with that crazy panel that was wrong, that reject panel, and fitted these pieces which Express Steel Panels made me based on their template, which is based on the original Ford. and they are used to attach the lower front in one of its areas anyway. This is a measurement to check the height. This assumes that the floor's level. It's only a rough guide. The important guide is getting a square. If you use two reference points, in this case the front, the mount holes next to the bulkhead for the wing bolts, across to pick a corner. Obviously this end was grafted in, you can see the ground back metal where the piece is grafted in. So I was looking at 151. I want 151 on both opposite corners. That gives you a square, which would tell me is because the car has had the crash. Don't forget that. But I did get 151 corner to corner perfectly. Go arc it across, and it lands on 151 in the corner position. I was totally happy with that. It worked, and it was to the mill. I must admit that surprised me because I thought something would be out, but it wasn't. So the grafted corners have gone in perfectly square, which is good news. The grille sits parallel, which is great news. Cross member's obviously right. The wings are happy where they're sitting. They need a little bit of jiggling, but they always do. So that means it's time to start sealing everything up. No reason why we can't get the spot welder in and seal the top panel, what you call the upper front valance. Those oval slots are for the grille bottom tabs to locate in. Nothing better than getting some spot welds on the go. Around we go for plenty of spot welding. A whole lot of rosy. Heavy little item, go in the gym helps. Grab, push, and away you go. Sometimes it'll spark, other times it'll just go straight through. It's so satisfying. So we're building the front end of Bramble, and we're having fun doing it. We've checked, double checked, measured again, lined up, moved, altered, bashed, bent, twisted and welded till we got what we wanted. Although I must say I didn't really have to do a lot. There was no major issues with alignment. Cleaning just the areas for the rest of the spot welds just to help get penetration on the spot welder. Starting to look like a front end now, guys. I'm sure you agree, guys and girls, I'm sure you agree. Starting to get its face back, and we're pushing back all the time. Start at the front and push back into the car, get rid of the rust. Bang the spot weld in, why not? Give me a spark, baby. Oh yeah, look at that. Back of the net. Why not? Let's build a car. See what we can do. Dangerously poised. Read what you want out of that one. Could be construed as rude. How many amps have you got? Long for a few more. Now we give it every other space in here because later on we're going to be fitting the lower valance, and them spot welds fit between those welds, so they end up, we can't do it all in one operation. There's a reason for that, and I wasn't sure the spot welder would be able to penetrate all three levels, so just to make sure I alternated the distance. But if it can't penetrate all three levels, then we plug weld the lower valance on. However, we've left accommodation in case it does work. Cleaning up the nibs, the probes, the ends of the forks, the spot welder, this particular set, just keeping the diameter of them even. They work a lot better if they're parallel and clean. You don't need to clean the edge of it, only the contact face. However, that was just to keep the diameter even, because they do end up distorting. A difficult one to reach, that's why I've got the longer probes in, arms, whatever you want to call them. Get some nice fixings there for that cross member panel. Come on, yes, that's nice. That's worked. We've got some good fixings there. Be seeing plenty of spot welding coming up in the next few minutes. They do get hot, and my gloves aren't on this bit. Well, I'm not allowed to apologise for not having gloves. But I'm sorry, but I haven't got gloves. Go on, get in. Ah. I can't put it on too loud, I'll get in trouble with YouTube. But you can see what we're listening to. Oh yeah, I do like it when you get a little flash spark and then a nice glow. Yeah, bit of burn back. Yeah. I'll try and get the sound up on the spot welder for you. I know someone on YouTube commented saying they love the sound of the, I think it's 50 hertz you're talking about. Bah! It's a great sound. On the other side. Shaky view. Just about on target there. I go back and check everything. This is a difficult area to get to without those long reach arms. The C section to the cross member needs about 10 welds. We get them all in. Boom. That one got a double. Getting the one in, I think we do, just checking. Bang, that one went big. This side as well. So just now fully securing the cross member. You'll see that panel added is a little skewed to the right, but we'll straighten that up later on. In we go. We close that up. Looks open this side, but it isn't. It does make contact. You can see it burning through. Boom! Oh yeah! Firework night. Later on, that gets squeezed with a long nose. See, I won't get it because of that gap. See, I probably can't see that when I'm doing that. Boom! Dry forks. Now a bit of cleaning up in fast motion, save a bit of time. This is where we did that join on the front repair, the inner wing where it was damaged, straight in. Combination of grinder wheel, and I've been recommended to use a sort of flexi disc thing, and I did try it and it's great. So thanks for that recommendation. A couple of people recommended it on YouTube, and on Patreon, so thank you very much for that recommendation on the flexi disc and pad type setup. We'll talk about that in the next film, exactly what they meant, but fits on your angle grinder, sanding pad, and you can take most of the weld off and then go in later on for the finer detail with the crock. I'm going to call it a crock again. I like the crock. Just box there on the crock tip. Thank you for that. A lot of cleaning up to do. Andy on the camera now, giving us some extra angles we wouldn't normally see. So we've just infilled the weld. This was stitch welded on this front end repair. Then I've gone back between the stitches to try and create a continuous weld line. Usually takes me about 3 attempts to get it where there's no pinholes. I like the accuracy of the crock sander. I can just wiggle it into where I need. And you'll see to my left the repair sections of that apron we talked about. We put the metal in for that. We cut some templates out and fitted those in. Andy films from the other side. That's a Mac. It's only 40 quid from B&Q. And I got a lot of use out of that. It's done all the Ruby. Project Ruby, that is. If you don't know what I mean by Ruby, that's another car that we built. Have a look through the videos because it's there. It's a full series of films. Finishing off them plug welds. Generally tidying up that area. It has to be done. If you're going to stitch on a front end, and you've got to do the groundwork. You've got to take back your welds. Ear defenders always. No way I want to come out of there with ringing ears. And I don't want to be breathing in microscopic particles of ground off metal either. So that's why the full face mask is on. I'm not interested in trying to be brave with no protection. I ain't got nothing to prove. An ominous look at what's ahead of us as Andy pans the camera back, and now we need a battery tray because it's not been fitted yet because we had to remove it to do the repair on in the wing. So this is another piece of donor metal. This is a shell front end we've had in stock for a long time, and this is with the complete battery tray mount bracket. It's upside down at the moment. The camera's the right way around, but the donor section of metal is flipped upside down, and I'm exposing the spot welds on the battery mount bracket. The Portuguese car had a split bracket. This one's a complete full bracket. When I mean split, the piece of metal on the top of your screen there was cut in half, and I don't know if that's Ford's different stock or whatever they had, I don't know, but all the ones I've seen have been complete brackets, not with a split in them. For that reason I didn't use the Portuguese bracket. I wanted to use one which I'm familiar with, and the one that came off the car that was damaged was complete bracket, but it was so rotten that it's got thrown away, so we needed a donor, and here's the donor. And we need to expose the spot welds, and we also need to try and get this off in one piece. Not easy because there's a lot of spot welds on it, and it's very easy to damage them when you take them off. So we've got to try and get this off without too much damage. Let's see what we can do. There's the top off. The last weld was done that way with that very thin chisel, and now we're going to use that again just to get the last of them off. There's some pitting on it, but we're going to fill that in with weld. There's probably one more little nib of the spot. Third one in from the left needs finishing off. That very fine chisel. It could be second in from the left. That very fine chisel is good to do that. So let's get that off. And away it goes. Away it goes. Yes, I was quite pleased that that came off quite easy. You needed it to. There's the donor section spun upside down. You can see that the lower chassis sections on that are well shot because all Cortinas rot through there. Unless you wax oil, you need to get wax oil. It's not called wax oil, it's Dinitrol that I use. Wax oil, I suppose, works. It's not as good as, say, Built Amber or Dinitrol. That panel will still be kept, that front end will still be kept. You never know what we could pull off of that in the future. There goes the battery tray. Now look at that little corner piece. I don't really know what it's for. I'm going to guess that it's some kind of locating tag that was fixed to either the inner wing first and then the battery tray butted up against it, or it was all as one piece, but it's a weird little shape. Look at that for 28 to the top of the slam. I was just checking out of curiosity really that my front upper valance was the same as a standard car, and it lands on 28, so look at that. So we know we've got that right. That was just an afterthought. Some Foss Clean to clean the battery bracket up into a little tray. I can never remember what goes in first, the water then you add the acid, or the acid then you add the water. Oh! I think it's acid then you add the water. Correct me if I'm wrong. Something to do with you don't want a big reaction. I think it's acid first and water later, because it's the lesser amounts in first, I think. Could be wrong, but I am. Let's keep going. Let's get that battery tray cleaned up. Battery tray mount bracket cleaned up. And there's that little odd little piece. I took it off with a little bit of metal at the end. Half of it's removed, drilled from the back. Didn't want to damage it, so left the original battery tray metal still stuck to it. Just broke a belt. We need to clean that back, which we do. Get rid of that remaining piece of metal. No problem. Oh yeah. It's one technique you can use, attack from the back if you don't need the metal that it's coming off, and then you don't have to drill holes in it, and you can spot weld it back through without any holes. Otherwise we'd have had to plug that up. So that little tiny little piece of battery tray section is now salvaged. We need that to keep everything looking original. We just don't know its function. Give it a wash. That's neat, by the way. Let's have a little look at it. My little jacket, welding jacket, masked down to infill between those stitch welds. So we're sort of revolving round jobs. I think probably why I've dropped back on this is I'm letting the acid clean those parts up, and that's the reason why. That'll definitely be the reason why I've dropped onto this job. So we're now going to look for just infilling between the stitches on that donor front. If you're not in part 5, we've grafted in a section of metal to save the inner wings of Project Bramble that were shot to hell. They were like a sieve, but the back end of them was good. That's about all we can get until we spin the shell, because I don't want to be welding upside down. It's ready to be cleaned up. You can see that there's minimal burn simply because the metal's so clean. That's what I like. Really, I've got no time for a messy metal kicking back at me. I think it's unnecessary. Grinder wheel on the 4-inch. We've tried various different ways of knocking welds back. Grinder wheel's alright, but I think the best one's the flap wheel, or them flexi sanding pads that everyone's recommended. I think you're both up in the same league. This is okay. You can just take your time with this and just, I've hardly got any pressure on that. I'm just letting it land and just ride on the weld. There it is. So a 4-inch grinder with a 4-inch grinding disc, of course, and just feathering it over it till I take the heads off that weld down there, that stitch weld completed, and then I'll use the croc sander, finger sander, croc sander to get in. Another angle of the same job. I'd say that jacket there, it's Velcro and stud fastening welding jacket, nothing can burn through it. More used if you really got a lot of kickback on your welder. Saves the arms getting burnt, saves going through your clothes. Handy jacket. This side now for a few spot welds on that panel that overlaps. This is more to give it an effect of a factory finish, because I have to infill with plug weld where the original spot welds were drilled out. Because this side was handled slightly differently than the offside. The offside was still attached to the inner wing. Cleaning up the C-section where it hits the apron, looking round to this side to see how clean we're looking this side, and we can see some penetration through where I've put the weld through the apron and it's penetrated into the C-section, so we got a good join and we're back to factory spec. Cleaned up the welds on that lower section that we repaired in the beginning of the film, so you just keep getting closer and closer each time, and you can rotate jobs, go back on a job, get back into a job, and just hone in all the time, getting closer. So the acid's cleaned that up now. And there's our battery tray. Not sure why the VIN tag's hanging around there, but it is. So we need to attach that bracket to the battery tray. There's the original battery, well, not the original, but a original battery tray. Not bad copy for Weng panels or Magnum panels, so yeah, pretty good, can't fault them. 25 quid for your battery tray. Express panels may be able to make this bracket, they can make anything, so if I gave them that, they would make it. Depends on demand, but they can hand form any panel. These are the original spot weld location points, which I'm going to use as a reference for the battery tray, so that when I attach the bracket, it's in exactly the same spot. So that's my reference point to attach it. There's a lot of work we're going to have to do to that bracket. It's finned out where I've drilled the spot welds, and we're going to have to make it look factory. We're going to have to plug weld it back on, and then I think I'm going to give it a bit of a spot weld treatment. You can see where the edge is slightly thinned and feathered. We need to make that look good, so we're going to start filling it with weld. And we do. Release the pliers soon. Yeah, we go and relock on, fill with weld. And after the first fix, then we go for a second fix where we've missed anything, and we can infill it and try and start to get some shape back into this to make it look factory again. Difficult because it's very thin metal, but if you're careful with the welder and you pulse it, you have it on the right power setting, you can get it without too much damage. And then with a bit of sanding and then re-welding, you'll get that so that it's nice and clean and you won't be able to tell it's been replaced. I'm just doing the top lip of it now. We should be able to get a little bit of a weld, so we're going to pulse that and just draw it along very carefully. Clean metal, of course, so there's no kickback. Starts to draw along and away we go. That edge now needs cleaning up. We're going to do that. We're going to run a little 1mm blade along that top edge, and then we're going to put more weld into any pinholes, which is what I've done here. You can see that. A little edge on it, make it look like a good factory finish. Then clean up again, add a bit more weld and build it up. Any pits, keep on building it. I spent about 2 hours on this to get it right. It's a high visual item in the engine bay. Crocky in again. Fade out, and then you can see where I've ran the edge on it, then run the crock sander in just to clean it up. Now I think we add some spot welds now to give it a factory finish. Starting to get there though. I spend a bit of time on a battery tray because, as I said, it's something that you look at in the engine bay. I like a bit of detail, so trying to jam it between my legs a little bit tricky because I'm trying to keep it in the middle of the camera screen. Timer on the spot welder is set dialed right back to about halfway because it's quite thin metal here. You don't want to burn it straight through. You can maybe just get a right power setting for the spot welder. Probably won't be any sparks throwing back from this because it's so clean. There isn't any primer on it, so you just go straight in. That'll give us a nice little dimple effect. Very satisfying. Looks good. And away we go. So we're all done there. Finished. Let's get that fitted. It's amazing how much the camera picks the cat up. Can't believe it. In it goes. Some holes in it now ready for the plug welding. Nice and clean, so we should get a good plug weld in here. Just one tack to hold it. Then we go for the main hit. Looks good, although I want to check everything's lined up, so off we go. And wiggle around. Nice little circle in the end to finish off. There's the circle. You can just see me doing a circular motion and a bit of a walnut whip finish. Bang at the bottom, 6 o'clock. Up, cross, 3 to 9, then round in a circle, pull out. When it's clean metal, this is easy to do. It's only when you've got stuff kicking back at you and spitting and spluttering and rust and stuff in the way where you can't get clean weld finishes. A couple more to do on the other side of the battery tray. So we're welding the battery tray to the inner wing apron. And that went on very cleanly, if I recall. Quite enjoyed that. I think we're going to show the finished result in a minute. We've gone round. Welder on position 2. Label burning there. Yeah, they're alright. Not too high, fully filled in. I'm happy with those. Now we need to address that bottom of the bracket, so clamp it up and get some tacks in first. A little bit difficult because the metal's thin, but it won't stop us, we'll do it. Then we'll be dressing it all up to make it look factory. So you can see it's starting to get there. We've cleaned up that lower chassis mount point that we did early on with the clip. Clip on, get the plugs in, add a little bit more, grind back if we need to, infill again with a welder. Sometimes when I'm doing the infill pieces I'll switch it to position 1. It doesn't need to be as strong if you're just filling in little gaps, little pinholes. All I can say about welding is practice, but clean metal. Okay, so plugs are in, we need to dress that. Battery tray level, we did check the measurements and the levelness of it. And now that super duper flat wheel that everyone recommended to me, so thank you for that. Everyone that recommended it, quite a few of you did. It does make mincemeat of it. If anything, it's very strong. I'll be really careful with it, but it is good. It does take the heads off really fast, but I have plenty of the discs, so it's a big thumbs up for that one. And that's my appreciation for your recommendations on YouTube and Patreon. That's me thanking you. Cleaned up, looking better. Put a little bit of a 1mm slit disc on the bottom of it to keep the edge clean, so it made a nice tight clean panel edge. And that's the battery tray done. And there's some repairs and some welding that we've dressed up on that repair for the chassis. There's our nicely spot welded in upper valance. Quite pleased with how that went. You see those spot welds as it scrolls across. See how nice and dimpled they are, those spot welds, because it's got a really good finish on the spot welder. Battery tray again from this angle. Some cleaning up to do down this end as well, but we're getting there. All the plug welds in on that side now. We'll go over a few more little pinholes, and that was that. Okay, so we're nearly finished. There's a few more little jobs to do, a couple more clips coming up, and then we're going to call it a day for episode 6. I think we've done quite well there to get everything looking nice and clean. But for now, we'll call it a day, I think, actually, because we're up to an hour and I'm trying to keep the videos on an hour, so we're going to thank you right there on episode 6. Let's see what 7 brings us. We never know what 7's going to bring us. So it's over and out from Cortina City, and you've just seen us rebuilding the front end of the car. We're going to catch you in part 7 for more works as we push back towards the bulkhead in part 7. Finalise the front and we'll push back towards the bulkhead. So hope you enjoyed those welding clips. We'll catch you in part 7. It's over and out for now. Pete, Cortina City. Thanks for all the comments and support. If you want to support the project, get across to Patreon. Over and out, Cortina City.